Even Zizek, a great thinker, along with Dugin, and in a more narrow but intense way, Agamben, I would say, sometimes appear to be moving in a way that requires no strength, as though they were moved by strings. Um, the strings of history, perhaps, but this is something one must endeavor in order to fulfill Zizek's own dictum of be interesting, or his maxim. One is not interesting when one doesn't have a suitably Olympian level of self-awareness, as the self-awareness of Nietzsche, for instance, is often praised, or a high level of consciousness. Zizek is saying that when he says one must ask the right questions, the meaning is that we're presented with answers all the time, but then we don't know what these answers are the questions for. So, for example, what is knowledge? The answer is the experimental sciences, as they now are carried out in laboratories, in universities, um, by physicists sending signals at greater than the signal of light across the Danube River, by those who have learned to synthesize in a very simple way that a high school student can carry out in a high school lab, um, how to give directions through putting an eyedropper of a chemical onto a pluripotent stem cell to become any cell, um, and other things in the realm of medicine, invention, and so on. That's the answer to what knowledge is. It's already here. What was the question that first got us asking about knowledge? Then one might ask, what's the context here? The ultimate sense of this, that was a little bit, didn't quite come together perfectly, but let me clarify the meaning. The meaning is this. The idea is, it's discovered at a certain point that human questioning seems to be questioning about what it is that we already think. Um, this is Collingwood's version of historicism, for instance, that Leo Strauss points to. Metaphysics, the search of Plato for the ideas, is the question of what is it that we already think. So, like, again, we're in Plato's time. It turned out that they thought what the good meant was to discover sort of blueprints for how to build cities, the right kind of just polis, the polis that would endicate, or justice meant that which would improve the citizen, which is the kind of polis that will do that. Knowledge is about this kind of guidance, or sometimes moral guidance. Um, Whereas today there's somehow a different answer is thrown at us. And then if we find out that the question there was, what is knowledge? We're again in the cave a second time, because that was what was already taken for granted to be in question. That there's some notion of knowledge, or which has in our own time been split between the sort of wisdom versus, uh, I don't want to say empirical, but positive knowledge, or something that through an experiment has been put into a correct form that people can then repeat, so that it seems like there's data that's you can always have before you. You could always uh, manipulate, and you can always fashion things out of it, fabricate things from something that seems to always be there, a field of, uh, that's been positive, that's been laid down. Originary sense of the Latin roots. Something already laid down is there. The data, the facticity, the correct things. There's a heap of those, and then you can manipulate those. Um, so this shows some of the difficulty of the questions Zizek's asking is he sufficiently self-critical at a high enough level of self-consciousness that when he presents to himself this schema, he also sees the schema itself as an answer. And then he has to ask again, what's the question? There's a nesting. So yeah, he sees that some answers have been given to him. He suddenly comes up with something and asks, what question was this the answer to? But then he sees this is itself a structure that has been given to him and has an answer, and etc. etc. There we seem to come to this point where we have to grasp the kind of Nietzschean piercing power with respect